Hey everybody, I am back again. It's been about a week and so I am on time. Um, I want to talk a little bit about kind of my past, the story so far of me. I know I've gotten a little bit into like my history before and the trauma and experiences I've had with life and stuff, but um, a lot of stuff has happened in this last week that kind of has me re-examining like my goals and where I want to be in life. And I mean, not a lot has changed with that, but it's kind of like been a lot of thinking about what I'm doing right now, and if it really is conducive to getting me to where I want to be in life. The Teach for America applications open up in a month on August 18th. I've been looking at different areas that I want to go and what subjects they're looking for in those areas, the timeline on the teaching certification process and everything. Um, it feels really weird to be thinking about all of that and to know like by this time next year I might be already settled down in a new home and getting ready to be teaching high school. It's weird to think about. I'm looking out of state mostly, but I am also considering the Rio Grande Valley in Texas simply because even though the goal is to get out of Texas, that's an area where they always seem to be desperately needing teachers, and it's very inexpensive to live. I can probably save up a decent amount of money in the 2 years that I'm staying there with Teach for America. And then if I want to relocate and still teach and stuff, I have that opportunity. But um, it gives me the opportunity to save more money and to be near the coast and maybe get to spend some more time on Texas beaches before I leave this place forever. But we'll see. I don't really know. That's definitely a ways off. I've still got a month before I even apply, and I'm going to be spending a lot of time really thinking about where I want to go. I'll have three choices, so it's a matter of deciding what my top is. If I'm wanting to for sure leave Texas now, or go ahead and stick it out a little bit longer and just get out of Abilene. Um, we'll see. Oh yeah, I am dressed up. Uh, this is not my usual attire for videos. My best friend and I decided to go out tonight to karaoke pride night at this place called One Mic Stand. It was fucking fantastic. We had a lot of fun out there, and the drinks were pretty good. So, um, definitely recommend. I think they're going to be doing a pride night like once a month, so that will be cool. Um, Now, instead of like prattling on and just small talking, I kind of do want to get to the story so far. So, this is kind of like a breakdown of like the phases of my life so far and like how I've gotten to where I am, or kind of like what's really in those times of my life been the formative experiences or whatever. And I'm kind of like on this because I have been doing my shadow work prompts and writing about well, responding to prompts and stuff, but the ultimate goal is like to get in and um resolve the trauma that I have. And like I said in the past, I've worked through a lot of my adult trauma. I've worked through just like the the really emotional experiences, the personal experiences. I've worked through being a rape victim and being underappreciated in my life, and being just kind of an afterthought for a lot of the time. But there is a lot of trauma from my childhood and my youth that I didn't recognize until earlier this year that I do need to work through as well, because it was formative, and it's still affecting me. It's still causing me to react in ways that I shouldn't be reacting. And so I've been doing the shadow work prompts to kind of get a little bit of work done on resolving some of that trauma, or at least being able to recognize it and pinpoint my reactions, and make changes to my reactions to just do better with that. So, the story so far, I know I've said that like two or three times now. Childhood. As a child, I was outgoing, happy. I was bold and extroverted, but also there was trauma. My youngest brother died when I was 3. I didn't have the warmest childhood home growing up. My parents were definitely still figuring it out. I think that's the case with a lot of us millennials is our parents were learning how to parent as they're raising us, and we were kind of all learning together, learning at the same time. It's very trial and error, very much not like the generations before us grew up, I believe, but it's just my opinion. um, I was definitely becoming more reserved. I was learning that I needed to keep part of myself back more than I had been. Even as early as 3, I was having bouts of depression. As I got older and time went on, those bouts of depression kind of grew more pronounced a little bit. Into my adolescence, when I was much more of an introvert. I was still outgoing a little bit after warming up to people, but I was much more reserved than I was before. I was very mistrusting of others. I minimized my natural shine and I minimized my graciousness, and it became a lot easier to cut people out. Adolescence is probably when uh, my behavioral issues started becoming more recognizable. Like, obviously, I was never neurodivergent enough on the surface to be diagnosed as a child or an adolescent. I was an honor student. I had mostly straight A's, but the flip side of that was I was procrastinating everything till the last minute. I was putting so much pressure on myself. Like, I was one of those like perfectionist students that is like putting everything off and then just freaking out and frantically throwing it together so that it's done, and then doing surprisingly well with that. Kind of like how I did with many of my papers throughout my bachelor's degree program. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it. It's stressful. Um, but yeah, middle school was kind of when some of the major trauma happened. I was bullied, and I mean, beyond that, I also was a bully. There were times when I bullied other people, and I am definitely not proud of that. It's not something that anybody should ever feel proud of, because we can all be better and do better. But I was bullied, and there were times where I found myself turning around and doing the same thing to other people, and it was a rough transitional time. And then into high school, I definitely had less and less friends, and it got to the point by the time I graduated where I was much more of a loner than I had started out as. Um, Young adulthood, more trauma, loss of friendships, but aside from that, there was also the deepening of a lot of friendships. Um, Occupation necessities, improved social skills. I was super anxious and terrified of talking to people, and then I was waiting tables, and I had to learn how to communicate with people and talk to people to make money because it was my job. And if I didn't, I couldn't pay my bills. And that was one of the probably greatest things I could have done, because I really needed to come out of that shell that I was hiding in. I needed to get past a lot of the defenses that I had put up to keep people out, because I was going to learn as an adult that people don't suck as much as they do when you're younger. I mean, people still suck. Like, you're still gonna go through shit, deal with trauma, but it's not as bad. People aren't usually quite as cruel. Um, Marriage teaches lessons, and I maneuver life in trauma. Yeah, that first marriage, I learned a lot. Still made a lot of stupid choices after that, but I definitely learned a lot about myself. I learned what I do and don't want out of life, at least to an extent. Definitely still had a lot of lessons to come later, but yeah, I married my ex-husband 2 months after he blew a .28 on the clock 4 hours into a shift. Absolutely got fired for that. He hadn't been drinking at work, so it was just that high of a concentration of alcohol in his blood that 4 hours into work, he still smelled like it. He still blew the very, very high blood alcohol number. Yeah. I was really dumb, and I thought all I ever wanted was marriage and kids, and I learned that that wasn't the case. So the rest of my young adulthood was coming into myself, getting to know me, and definitely forming my very unique identity. It was kind of a blast, but it was still really hard. There was still a lot of trauma. There was still a lot of trauma to come, and that's just kind of like the way that it is. More recently, so the story so far coming up to where we're at, begin therapy and psychotropic meds. I was 27 the first time I decided to finally start seeing a therapist, to see a psychiatrist, go through the diagnostic process, and start taking meds. It would still be several more years that I would hold back and not be properly diagnosed because I definitely was not as open about my mental health as I needed to be going through the diagnostic process. I was diagnosed with minor depression for a really long time until I ended up in Oceans, and definitely like being on a suicide watch opens people's eyes to you not being as okay as you might be pretending to be. My minor depression diagnosis finally officially became a major depressive disorder diagnosis, which I think has definitely been almost lifelong. So um, don't hide shit from your therapist. They might never find out, but then you might make a suicide plan and then they do find out. So, um, mega improved social skills and job, still battling trauma and increasing loss through death and personal growth. So yeah, basically like I'm still trudging through life. As I get older, more of my friends and loved ones die. As I get older, I've had to let go of some of my oldest friendships because they don't serve me anymore. We're in different places in life, and there are boundaries that aren't respected like they once were. In the last year, I have ended two two friendships that span more than 15 years, and it was really hard to make that decision both times. The first time a lot more so than the second time, but by the second time I knew that I was capable of it, and that if it was a thing to do, it was a thing to do, and that I was going to be firm in my boundaries and how I felt about things that happened. So becoming an adult, going through growth, like it's fucking great. It's fantastic. The flip side of that is you can be an adult and still be working through horrible trauma from like previous decades that you never recognized as trauma, and then one day you did, and you have to get through it and deal with it. Life is kind of hard that way. It sucks, but that's the thing that I'm learning. For me personally, the whole fake it till you make it thing holds a lot of merit. It makes me angry. I hate it. I hate that it is absolutely true for me personally, but like that's how I typically tend to get better when I'm going through stuff. And being at the point where I'm working through the trauma and making some significant changes in life, it makes a difference, but it's definitely still a chore. I don't know that it'll ever not be a chore. I've gotten hurt recently by people that I thought were friends, which story of my life, like that's been my whole life. I think the reason that losing the friends that I've lost lately is so was so hard to go through is how similar it was to a situation when I was a preteen, and how how much it feels kind of exactly the same emotionally and mentally as I like maneuver this time in my life. It's fucking crazy to be like 33 and being flashing back to 12 years old, like, oh, I feel like I already went through this, like how was I dumb enough to do this again? Obviously 21 years makes a huge difference, but whatever. I think that we're all here to make the most of our lives, and I hope that there are people out there that I can help for them to make the most of their lives, because life isn't any fun if it's all just doom and gloom and you can't find the things to laugh at or the things to be happy about or the things to indulge in, or just like time to sit and veg out and focus on yourself, or just be and not have to worry about like doing. um if any of that makes any sense. This is more of like a weird, whimsical, like all about me kind of update, which I guess technically up till this point it kind of has been like sharing my poetry, sharing my life, sharing my ideas, whatever. I am probably actually going to be back sooner than a week because I do have some poetry that I want to share, but I am not really ready at this moment to share that. And yeah, so I hope that I see y'all again soon. Thanks for watching, and y'all have a great week.